All right, I'd like to talk about the commandments. And first and foremost, I was praying about what to talk about last week. And I mean, we have the sessions on Saturday, but like Sunday last week, I had gotten three confirmations that I had to talk about commandments. At some point, I found myself almost getting into an argument with Tatanzambi. I was thinking, but I've talked about this before. He reminded me, you've not talked about it here on this channel. You've talked about it elsewhere. Then when I started preparing, I was shown a few new things that I didn't know. So I guess those are the new things that we're going to learn today. All right, let's get into it. The commandments. This is the word command as it is in the scriptures. For the word for commandment, here it's pronounced as mitzvah, but then interestingly, in Kamba language, we have a word that is meow. You don't pronounce the TSV, it's like silent. And meow means commandments or rules or laws. I don't think it's a coincidence that it's the same pronunciation and the same meaning. Those are some of the things that I guess the Most High wanted to show us. When you click onto this root word for meow, you get to the primitive word, which is tavia. Tavia. This is also a word in my Kamba language or Kamba dialect, which is a Bantu dialect. And tavia means to command, to charge, but it's not just like the way a military person might issue a command. It is like the way a parent will tell a child, I'm not going to tell you that again. Or the way an elder will tell, grandchildren, sit down, I give you advice. In my Kamba language, we have a word that says otao. It comes from the word tavia. Otao is like wisdom, it's like life knowledge, it's like instructions. Maybe the closest word in English is the word charge. You're not commanding somebody to go right and left and do this and that, like a soldier would be commanded, but you're giving somebody life's instructions, the way to live, things like that. So that's the word otao, which comes from tavia, and tavia is what is to command. All right, now when we look at the scriptures, where do we see the word command? First in the book of Genesis. And here Tatanzambi commanded Adam, saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat of it. Look at the consequence of not keeping the commandment. There always seem to be consequences, good or bad. For in the day that you eat thereof, you shall surely die. And then we see it again in Genesis chapter 3, verse 17 to 19. And unto Adam, he said, this is Zambi saying to Adam, because you have hearkened unto the voice of your wife, and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it. Here's the consequence. Cursed is the ground for your sake. In sorrow shall you eat of it all the days of life. Thorns and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and you shall eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of your face shall you eat bread. So he was not sweating to eat before this. Tatanzambi was just providing it. But now, as a consequence, he had to sweat for his food. Till you return unto the ground, for out of it you are taken, for dust you are, and unto dust you shall return. That's Adam in Eden. He was given commandments. He was given a command on what to do and what not to do. Here is Isaac. Isaac is being told to stay in the promised land. And in Genesis 26, verse 3, it says, sojourn in this land. He's in a place called Gerar. I believe that might be Harare in Zimbabwe. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you and bless you for unto you and unto your seed I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swore unto Abraham your father. And I will make your seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and will give unto your seed all these countries. And in your seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because that Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, my laws. What I found out here is not just that Abraham kept commandments. Of course, if you're keeping commandments, he was given these commandments by Nzambi. But what I found out was the emphasis here that these are Nzambi's commandments. Notice the way it's repeated from my voice in verse 5, my charge, my commandments, my statutes, my laws. I mean, 5 times. Whenever you see Tata Nzambi repeating something, he's trying to really make sure you don't miss it. So these are his commandments. They're not our rules or laws that we put in place with our governments. But he says to Isaac here that because Abraham, Isaac's father, kept these commandments, Tata Nzambi is going to do all these things for Isaac, multiply him, give him all the nations, blah, 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 because of what Abraham did. Now let's look at Moses. Moses here is instructing the Bantu, Solele, near the river Jordan. I will encourage all of you later on, read this chapter, Deuteronomy chapter 4. I was reading it, and at some point, in fact, I read chapter 3 before. I would encourage you to do that. Read from chapter 3 and then get into this. I found myself tearing up. And I'll explain why I found myself tearing up. You see, in chapter 3, Moses is told that he's not going to enter the promised land. He's not going to cross this Jordan River. But he has to come and give these people the commandments and then go to Mount Nebo where he's going to die. And I'm thinking, this is after 40 years in the wilderness. He's been instructed, go give these people these commandments, and then you go up the mountain because you're not going to go into the promised land. Anyway, now therefore, hearken, O Israel, unto the statutes and unto the judgments which I teach you, for to do them, that you may live and go in and possess the land which the Lord, which Tata Nzambi of your fathers giveth you. Okay? You shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall you diminish aught from it, that you may keep the commandments of Nzambi, of Elimo your Nzambi, which I command you. Your eyes have seen what the Lord did because of Baal Peor. For all the men that followed Baal Peor, the Nzambi has destroyed them from among you. But ye that did cleave unto Nzambi are alive, every one of you, this day. Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as Nzambi commanded me, that you should do so in the land where you go to possess it. Couple of things that I learned here. Hope you learned some of them and some more too. And please do take notes for the discussion. First of all, they're being told to keep those statutes from verse 1 so that they may live. This is about survival. Okay, and go in and possess the land that was promised to them and their forefathers. Secondly, do not try and change these commandments. Don't add or remove from them. We will discuss in detail about how man's religion has added and diminished from the commandments or onto the commandments. Then in verse 3, some of these guys, some of the Bantu who left Egypt, along the way, They started worshiping this Baal Peor. I did a little bit of research. This was the god of the cleft, the God that you would want to cleave on. That is why verse 4 says, but you did cleave unto your Nzambi. Everybody else who tried to cleave onto that Baal Peor, they were not even alive by the time Moses is giving these instructions at the Jordan River. They were all dead. That's why I said it's a matter of survival. And then last but not least, in verse 5, you have been taught the statutes and judgments. We'll talk about those statutes and judgments. But note that it says there at the end, behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Nzambi commanded me, that you should do so. Where? In the land. Statutes and judgments, you will see, are repeated, and these are things that are to be performed specifically for those in the land, those in Africa, those in the promised land. All right, somebody's joined. If you could please mute. Somebody's joined and they've got the mic on. Please mute. I'm hearing some background noise. All right, thank you. All right, now let's talk about second part of those commandments issued by Moses. Keep therefore and do them. Look at this. For this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. These commandments are your wisdom and your understanding. Then he asks, for what nation is there so great, who has God so near unto them, as Nzambi is in all things that we call upon him? This says there's no other nation that is as close to Nzambi as we are. And what nation is there so great that has statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law, which he sets before us this day? There is no nation that has statutes and judgments that are this righteous. Even the nations we have today, even the most successful ones in our eyes, their statutes and judgments are not close to this. They have copied, they have tried to emulate some of them, but they keep failing. They keep changing things. Today, they're saying we can have marriage between man and man. You know, they're not as righteous as these laws that we have here. Today, they're saying, you know, in this state or that state, you can murder, but in that other one, you cannot. You know, they're not as righteous as what we have. Only take heed to yourself and keep your soul diligently, lest you forget the things which your eyes have seen, unless they depart from your heart all the days of your life. But teach them to your sons and to your sons' sons. Okay, two key things over here. This Bantu who are about to enter the promised land, they had witnessed things with their eyes. Unlike us who are just being told, who are just reading about these things, they saw the sea of reeds parted. They saw manna fall from the skies and they ate it. They saw Moses striking the rock and water coming out of it. They saw the plagues cast upon the Egyptians. They saw the firstborns of the Egyptians die, but their firstborns were let to live during the Passover. So Moses is telling them, don't you forget, because your eyes have seen these things. And don't you let these things, these commandments, depart from your heart all your life. And don't you let them depart from your families. That's why you have to teach them to your sons, and you make sure that your sons or your children teach them to their grandchildren and children. So Nzambi is saying this is for ever with us. The Bantu. Part 3, and Nzambi spake unto you out of the midst of the fire. Let me repeat that part again, because I missed it the first 5 times I read it. Nzambi spoke unto you out of the midst of the fire. You heard the voice of the words, but saw no similitude. Only you heard a voice. Do you all realize that the Israelites, Isolele, the Bantu, had the voice of Nzambi, literally, in their ears? Not that somebody was telling them about Nzambi. No, Nzambi came up the mountain when he gave Moses the commandments, and he spoke. Nzambi spoke to the people. And he declared unto you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform. What is this covenant? 10 commandments. You know, in my religious Christian life, I never had for once, and I was a Christian maybe for like 20 something years, maybe 25 or so. I never had once anyone tell me about the 10 commandments being part of a covenant. I have just read this week. This is a covenant between Isolele, between the Bantu, between us and Tatanzambi. And he wrote this covenant of the 10 commandments on tablets, 2 tables of stone. And Nzambi commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and judgments, again, that you might do them. Where? In the land where you go over to possess it. I did a little bit of digging. Some of these statutes, like the Sabbaths, we cannot observe them, for example, in the Northern Hemisphere, like here in the US, because of the timing. You cannot go and set up tents of tabernacles out in the winter. You'll be freezing. But in the land, you can do that because the weather allows for it. Deuteronomy 4:40. I just jumped ahead on this one, but I encourage all of you, go read chapter 3 of Deuteronomy and chapter 4. It is very detailed about this commandment. Thou shalt keep therefore his statutes and his commandments, which I command thee this day, that it may go well with you and with your children after you, and that you may prolong the days upon the earth, which Nzambi giveth thee forever. Okay, let's look at some other scriptures that also talk about the commandments. Those ones were the ones I picked for today. Okay, let's see here. All right. Now, where are these actual 10 commandments? You can find them in Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 1 to 22, but I also picked Exodus chapter 20. And I've put for you some signs, some numbers here on the 10 of them. So the first commandment that people refer to as the first commandment, you shall have no other gods before me. And then he expounds on that commandment. You shall not make unto yourselves any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Please make notes of all the images that you know that man has made, even if whether they worship them or not. But some of them do worship them, we know that. So here we're being told, don't even make it. Because Nzambi knows when you make it, it's just a matter of time before you start serving it as your God. Second one, you shall not bow down yourself to them, nor serve them. For I, Nzambi, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. So don't worship them. Don't worship those idols. Oh boy, I just did a Google the other day of the word idols. You know what came up? Images of Buddha, images of what they call the Kabbalah stone, images of the cross with a statue of a white Isolele, a white Isaiah, and so many other images of a Buddha. Interestingly, the Buddha has Bantu knots, that hairstyle that we have amongst Black people. All right, let me go to the fourth one. You shall not, no, the third one, you shall not take the name of Zambi, your God, in vain. For the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. You know, I used to have, I have a friend, he's actually a Muslim friend. I've known him for almost 10 years now, or 20 years actually, about 15 years. One time we used to work together with this guy. And when he got frustrated, you know, people express themselves in different ways. Some people will cuss out, say some things. But if you've seen some people, they'll scream, Jesus Christ, you know? And I was perplexed because this was a Muslim guy who was screaming, Jesus Christ. So I actually challenged him and asked him, so, did you just call on Jesus Christ? And he laughed, you know, and he said, yeah, we have Isa in our scriptures, but you know, he was just a good prophet, blah, blah, blah. But that's taking the Lord's name in vain. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't. The fourth one, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. That's what we're doing here today. You know, 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Nzambi. In it you shall not do any work. You, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your cattle, nor the stranger that is within your gates. For in 6 days Nzambi made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore Nzambi blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it, made it holy. Okay? Now, I really want to get into some more discussion about this, but for those of you who do not know, the Catholic Church, way back when, decided that they were going to change the day of worship, or the Sabbath day, from Saturday to Sunday. Really? You know, it's not their day, it's Nzambi's day. He created it and he hallowed it. He made it holy, you know. And then all the child religions or offspring of the Catholic Church, a lot of the Protestant churches, they followed suit. At some point, they even had conferences and they said, no, we're not going to do this. We're going to worship on the seventh day. We're going to observe the Sabbath on the seventh day, which was Saturday. But they were afraid to do it because the Catholic Church was also the Roman Empire. And this was a time of the Inquisitions, where if you did not do what the empire was saying, if they say go to church on Sunday and you did not do that, they killed you. So a lot of the Protestant churches simply protested, but did not act accordingly because they were too afraid. And even after that time passed, many of them still go on worshiping or observing on Sunday. I don't even know if they're observing a Sabbath or just hanging out. I don't know. Anyway, I won't judge them. Anyway, the next one, number 5, honor your father and your mother, that the days may be long upon the land which the Lord, which Nzambi gives you. Number 6, you shall not kill. I mean, how simple can it be? You know. Number 7, you shall not commit adultery. Number 8, you shall not steal. Number 9, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor or somebody else. And number 10, you shall not covet your neighbor's house, nor covet your neighbor's wife, nor their manservant or maidservant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is your neighbor's. So the first 4 commandments relate to how we interact with the Most High. You know, no gods before him, observe the Sabbath, and so many other things. Don't call his name in vain. And then the last half, or the last 6, talk about how we relate with fellow man. Then there's Deuteronomy chapter 28. We'll talk about this probably next week. But many of you are familiar with this chapter. This is when the children of Israel, Solele, have just left Egypt. And Zambi asks Moses to tell them these things. Verse 1 and 2 of Deuteronomy 28. It shall come to pass, if you will hearken diligently unto the voice of Zambi, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command this day, then Zambi will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come on you and overtake you, if you shall hearken unto the voice of Zambi. Those blessings are in verse 3 to 14. Verse 15 says, but it shall come to pass, if you will not hearken unto the voice of Zambi, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command you this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So again, commandments have consequences, whether they're good or bad. And here, many of you know this story, and I encourage you, if you have never read this chapter in detail, to read it in detail. Look at all those blessings from verse 1 to 14, and look at what has happened in our history as humanity. And see if you can identify those blessings. Then look at the curses from verse 15 to 68. And look at those curses and whether they have happened in history and who they have happened to. Whoever those curses have happened to consistently, those are Isolele. Those are the Bantu. Those are the children of Jacob. We will discuss Deuteronomy 28, hopefully next Sabbath, not today, but we can just touch on it a little bit. But I just wanted to introduce it here. All right, I am done. I think I've been on for about 25 minutes. So that's the presentation for today.